Welcome to Terror in Tandem, a podcast about finding entertainment in the macabre, hosted by the knowledgeable and lovable Laura and Richard Mathiasen. Each episode, we discuss the horror genre, from books to film to TV and beyond, sometimes even from the beyond. You can find us online at terrorintandem.com and on Instagram at terrorintandem.
Hello.
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 Good afternoon, good morning, and good evening.
Yeah. Hey. So how you doing?
I'm pretty good,
Yeah?
just,
I'm feeling this March gloom.
is that a thing?
It is now. It's just been gray and, enervating. I feel tired in this kind of weather.
Yeah, I guess so. It has been a little gray, although it has been sunny also. So I wouldn't just say exclusively gray.
So it's been gray and it's been sunny.
Yeah, I guess
Wow.
it depends on your perspective.
Yeah.
Are you a glass half empty or a sunny day kind of person?
I think we both know the answer to that.
Yeah, usually I'm like, it's sunny. My glass is full.
Are you having a stroke?
My cuppeth runneth over.
Speaking of which, I don't know.
Oh, yeah, thank you so much for the full
run,
cup.
The run of the cupping.
I appreciate that extensively filled cup. You really know how to top me off.
I wonder if there was a committee that decided which words to put "eth" at the end of
I think that's just old.
runneth.
I think they all had it.
But did they do it for everything? Like, I walketh to the storeth.
Probably. Well, I don't
The
think there was
smithieth.
such a word as a store.
The
but
smithieth. The blacksmithieth. It just seems difficult.
The boothnath.
I know that English was a lot different back then.
It was old.
Yeah. It was oldie. Oldie-timey.
I mean, what do you think about,
Oldie
what's your
timey.
take on the storefronts that have Shopee and
Yeah, listener,
oldie-timey?
call in. The lines are open. We're taking calls now. We can see the switchboard lighting up.
Yeah, the phone number to call in is 207
Hey, well, all right. I mean, there are lots of numbers with that area code that don't need to be talked about.
You will find the secret phone number to call in our Patreon account.
Which
We don't have.
we don't have, but if we did, we do have many offshore accounts that we keep hidden from various governments and whatnots.
Or do we?
Yeah.
I mean, we don't want this recorded. If you want a number that you could send us money through, just
Contact
DM us and
Laura's
we'll give you
mom.
an offshore account.
Yeah.
I mean, you will give us a legitimate legal account that we definitely pay taxes on.
In the Bahamas.
Just for the government listening, because I know you are, because everything we say is so interesting.
Hello, government.
This isn't true.
No.
We really don't have any
someone
other accounts.
is looking at our bank account right now and laughing.
Please don't audit us.
Just laughing
There's
at it.
nothing there.
It's
We're
like
not hiding anything. I
dirty
promise.
shoebox
Except
full
our
of
many
receipts.
properties, which we pay taxes on.
Yeah. How many times did you get fast food this month? Okay.
Fast
Right.
food.
I'm just saying,
The
if they're
government's asking you that question.
auditing our accounts. Yeah.
Yeah, because they definitely want to know.
They do.
Speaking of which, what
very
is this
interested.
charge on the account to a Dr. Clyde Baroque? Did he perform your exorcism?
All right, so I'm just going to insert the edit point here and
Why?
cut all
I'm
of
asking
that.
you, why did you spend thousands of dollars on an exorcism? That didn't work, obviously.
Because, as I always say, isn't it a beautiful day for an exorcism?
I guess.
Well, why don't we talk a little bit about that? It seems like a good topic for a horror-themed podcast.
Oh, well, since we plan to talk about inanimate objects, let's talk about possessions.
Oh. Do you need a minute?
You can cut that out. That was rude. I mean, you're not supportive at all.
I feel like all the energy was just taken right out of me.
Oh, well, that's the possession. Yeah, I think that what we're going to talk about today, everyone, is Possessions,
right? Not the concept found pretty much across most religious beliefs that some sort of supernatural entity can inhabit your corporeal body for a time or forever and change your personality, make you do things, maybe give you powers.
So, would you agree that there are two types of possessions that we're going to talk about today? Or
let me just check with all the entities inside of me right now. Yeah, we agree. We do.
So, typically, there are two types of possession, spiritual and demonic. And spiritual possession is something that happens when the body or mind is controlled by spirits or ghosts, and it is not necessarily an involuntary practice. So you can voluntarily invite a spirit to possess you.
That could come in handy on like a lonely day.
Yeah, it has like benefits to your spiritual growth, or maybe something you need to find, or answers that your community might need.
Yeah, let me just get the old Ouija board out. Right.
It exists in many cultures like Buddhism, Voodoo, or Voodoo.
Yeah, I mean, so
Wicca, Native Americans, they all have those traditions.
I think as long as, people have been alive, we've believed in the supernatural, in spirits. And then, encountering death, early Homo sapiens, maybe, couldn't contend with the idea that the death of the corporeal body meant the death of existence. So then came the concept of spirits. And if spirits are around, maybe they kept the personalities that they had in life.
Or maybe they have answers that the people on the earthly plane need.
Exactly, yeah.
Or the strength that they need.
You start having priests and shamans who say they can talk to the dead, that they can talk to the spirits, and then that becomes, evolves into a practice of inviting the spirits inside. It's something that Vodun practitioners like Hunguns, the priests and priestesses, that they call riding.
Yeah.
Where they actively invite a spirit to ride their body, to talk to the living, to imbue knowledge or power.
Although
like
not
that.
A horror movie. I mean, Black Panther, I think, does a really good job of spiritual possession.
Absolutely, yeah. That communing on the spirit plane, that shows the positive side. I mean, Hollywood has definitely put a negative spin on it because makes for a pretty good movie.
Well, demonic possession, for sure. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But I wanted to say, in 1969, a study funded by the National Institute of Mental Health found spiritual possession beliefs were known to exist in 74% of 488 societies in all parts of the world.
Wow.
With the highest numbers of believers in Pacific cultures. And the lowest among Native Americans.
Interesting. It makes sense that it's a universal human belief in like existence beyond death. So many people have different kinds of beliefs about that, and then things happen in life. People's personalities change due to mental illness or disease. That can't be explained, and you might just think, well, it's a spirit. Grandpa's acting weird. He's possessed.
Yeah.
That's the BC version of Alzheimer's.
I mean, I feel like Pixar has done, some of those spiritual possessions or spiritual experiences with some of their movies, like Coco and
right, yeah.
What was the newest one?
Well, the upcoming Pixar's The Exorcist reboot. I'm really looking forward to.
What was the one where she had that strong sister and the door?
Encanto. Yeah, that's not Pixar. That's just Disney.
Oh, yeah. I get those confused.
I mean, they're owned, same company.
But the idea of evil or demonic is largely a Judeo-Christian concept.
Yeah. I mean, it lines up with the same thing that the Catholic Church did with most pagan beliefs. Is integrate what you can, and then everything else you declare as being demonic in nature and evil and satanic.
Yeah.
To stamp it out. That's you get into the body of Christ compels you kind of shit.
So demonic possession is the supposed invasion of a body or evil spirit that gains control of the mind or soul, producing a mental disorder, physical illness, or criminal behavior. And many forms of physical and psychological illness were formerly attributed to demonic possession, like epilepsy, schizophrenia, and Tourette's.
For sure.
And that the traditional remedy for demonic possession is ritual exorcism.
And in modern day, in some cults, that is still the...
Not even in cults. So a study in Poland between 2018 and 2020,
Yes.
included 2 men and 2 women, all Roman Catholics between the age of 21 and 30. They'd all been previously diagnosed with schizophrenia, but labeled by local communities as being possessed. And the two of the participants were subjected to multiple exorcism, and then 2 used deliverance prayers in order to get the demonic possession gone.
Yikes.
All had been previously hospitalized due to psychotic symptoms, and all of them except one responded well to treatment. So,
I mean, I did say cults. So
right.
Yeah. But, it is a practice that, in your mind, you sort of think, oh, like Middle Ages. But no, it very much still exists. It's quite tragic. Usually you see a news story of somebody being tortured.
Yeah.
Because they've been accused of being possessed. And it often results in bodily harm and death. And it's very tragic. It's very sad. But we're here to talk about... I have no transition.
Oh. Well, I was going to say the Vatican first issued official guidelines on exorcism in 1614 and then revised them in 1999.
Really? In 1999?
Yeah.
Updated exorcism rules?
Yeah.
Wow.
According to the U.S. Conference of...
It's the year I graduated high school, by the way, so...
that says a lot.
Interesting.
The U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops' signs of demonic possession include superhuman strength, aversion to holy water, and the ability to speak in unknown languages. Other potential signs, and this is probably why they revised it, include spitting, cursing, and excessive masturbation.
Now, did they define excessive?
I think that's just a picture of you next to it.
All right. Can you just imagine like a room full of fucking old bishops sitting around being like, I don't know, twice a day, 3 times it? Like,
I can't imagine that would be excessive.
What's the excessive?
The inability to leave your house because you're so exhausted from masturbating all day.
You're sore. Walking around with frozen peas strapped here.
Dr. Richard Gallagher, he's an Ivy League educated board certified psychiatrist who teaches at Columbia and New York Medical College, is the modern exorcist that exists now today.
Really?
For the past 25 years, he's helped clergy distinguish between mental illness and what he calls the real thing.
Wow.
He estimates that he's seen more cases of possession than any other physician in the world. He very much believes in science, but he also believes in demonic possession on a very, very rare case, and he has seen it.
So kind of like Father Amorth.
I'm sure that's what it was based on, or loosely based on.
No, actually, Father Amorth was a real person. And listeners might be familiar with that name because there is a movie coming out, I think in April, The Pope's Exorcist, starring Russell Crowe, and that is about Father Amorth. Now, Father Amorth was the inspiration for Father Merrin in William Peter Blatty's The Exorcist, played by Max von Sydow in William Friedkin's amazing film version, my favorite movie of all time. So Father Amorth was like the most famous Vatican-sanctioned exorcist. He was a Catholic priest, and he quite famously almost all of his investigations ended up in his referral to physicians or psychologists. He, really did believe that almost all of the people he saw were mentally ill, but he did say that 1 or 2% were something that he called evil, that couldn't be explained.
That's this guy.
Yeah. So it's similar, but he was a real person. Actually, William Friedkin, the director of The Exorcist, only a few years ago, Father Amorth died, I think, he died, I think, maybe around 2014, something like that. But William Friedkin did a documentary called The Devil and Father Amorth, where he interviewed him and talked about his life. But I always found that a very interesting detail on this man is, whatever your thoughts on possession, demons, it does seem quite outlandish, especially in modern times, that this man who was a Catholic priest and the leading expert on it usually decided that it was a case of a mental disorder.
Yeah.
I found that kind of comforting when I learned that fact, honestly. Okay, good.
Well, I think one important thing to note is that most of these quote unquote demonic possessions, from a psychiatric perspective, people actually believe that they are possessed. Whether it's true or not, it's a delusion that they believe.
Yeah.
And often these beliefs are induced and reinforced by family, clergy, the media.
And there are some schools of thought, and this is actually this is talked about in the movie The Exorcist, that performing a quote unquote exorcism or the ritual of it without really doing it could be a treatment for that person. If the delusion is so ingrained, then you go through the motions of holy water and Latin and all that shit. And, you do it. You're not in your mind performing a real exorcism, but you're going through the motions. You're doing performative whatnot, kind of like the movie The Last Exorcism, which was really, really good, honestly. And that will help cure the person. If they really believe they're possessed, then exorcise the demon and great. It could be of benefit if done properly and not in a, dangerous way where you're depriving the person of food or water, things like that.
And the negative to that is that you're not addressing the true mental issue.
Absolutely.
You've prevented this person from getting and seeking the right help, and maybe creating an additional manifestation of another psychosis.
That's where you get into the sticky ethics of it, is who is the right person to call in this situation? Is it a psychiatrist? Is it a priest? Is it both? How do you address this? Because the decision you make could cause real lasting damage to the person if this is not demonic in nature. I'm not saying that doesn't ever happen. I don't know.
Of course.
Maybe it does.
Maybe it does. Maybe it doesn't. I just want a good possession to happen to you.
Oh.
If one was
Rude.
to happen.
Rude.
Why? I want a good possession to happen.
I guess.
If it has to happen.
Does it have to?
I don't know.
I just feel like maybe it doesn't have to.
No, it really doesn't. But if it does.
You're heavily implying that it might have to.
I don't think so.
I think we're heading in a direction. What's that? It smells like incense in here. What is that?
It always smells like incense in here.
What's under the carpet? Is that
Mom
a pentagram?
and Dad?
Oh no.
That's just incense you're smelling.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I'm just really into Nag Champa, Mom and Dad.
Mm-hmm. I am though.
I honestly, same. It doesn't always mean that.
Right.
But sometimes it does.
So back to spiritual possessions.
Oh.
I know that there are a lot of religions and communities and cultures that practice spiritual possession. Do you have any examples of that?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, if in modern times, if you're talking about certain evangelical sects of Christianity,
you gotta talk into the mic.
Certain evangelical sects of Christianity, Pentecostals and whatnot that speak in tongues. That's a form of possession, that the Holy Spirit comes upon you, that the Holy Spirit rides you, that you're overcome, that you are a vessel is the word that's used a lot in those denominations. I am a vessel for the Lord. Prophets in the Bible, were the literal mouthpieces of God on earth, that they spoke the word of God to humans because humans could not see God. To be in the presence of God would burn you to cinders.
Well, do you remember that Sarah Palin had that Kenyan pastor, Thomas Muthie, cast out all of the evil spirits that hindered her career in 2005?
Yeah, I no.
Yeah.
Are you sure? Was it a Kenyan pastor or was it a prescription for an antipsychotic? My God, woman.
Yeah.
What the hell?
Yeah, she had him visit Alaska and cast out the spirits to hopefully get her career set straight. But
so
it didn't work.
Sarah Palin looked back at the breadth of her career and decided, yup, it all went wrong because of demons.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's cool. It's good to be self-aware, in life. That wow. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to break your brain, but I'm talking about a spiritual, a spiritual.
Isn't she, quote unquote, what the fuck? Just stop voting for these people. I don't care what your politics are. I think you can identify someone who is not well.
Yeah.
All right.
I think this is really the at the heart of the matter is, how seriously do you take somebody who is possessed, whether it's a spiritual possession or a demonic possession?
Absolutely. Yeah.
How serious are you to take it? And the answer differs.
Who writes the rules?
Community to community, and religion to religion.
And that can often be very dangerous depending on who's making the rules.
Absolutely. Which is why Hollywood has been able to capitalize on these misdiagnoses or non-diagnoses and make it into a whole new understanding of what you do and what it looks like to be possessed.
It's interesting you should say that, because I'm certainly not against that. I love possession movies. I love them. I know they're overdone. They're a dime a dozen, but man, when they hit, they really hit for me. I think part of that is because I was raised by a very rigidly Roman Catholic family. So, and I saw The Exorcist at a young age, and it had a really big impact on me. It affected me greatly. It scared the shit out of me. Mm-hmm. And I've always, there was a period of my life where I was a practicing Catholic and did truly believe in these things in the presence of, demonic influence, and it scared me. So I am a fan of that, but I'm glad we're talking about the other side of it, because there are legitimate spiritual practices and beliefs by people where inviting spirits into yourself is not an evil or an unclean practice. It's a way to speak to the departed, to continue the teachings of your ancestors. It's actually quite beautiful. That it doesn't necessarily always have to be approached that way. Now, that being said, I say we take a break, come back, talk about movies where people vomit pea soup and get all sorts of weird boils on themselves.
Yeah, let's talk about what Hollywood's done to possessions.
Yeah.
The possessions of possessions by Hollywood. Picture this. It's a cold, rainy night. Your mom is sitting next to you at your bedside. You're feverish, tossing and turning, and just not quite feeling yourself. What's the one thing you know will make you feel better? Reagan's home-style pea soup. A recipe as old as time that's been unearthed and packaged for your own kitchen or cauldron. Blended to perfection, this easily digestible and regurgitatable soup will help you keep those demons at bay. With just a single serving, you will be satisfied and sanctified. With Reagan's home-style pea soup, you can be free from the pressures of the divine and stop filtering your true beliefs. Just let it all go. This is a fake ad for a fake product on a horror-themed podcast. We do not condone nor endorse possession or exorcism.
And we're back.
Wow, that was the quick break.
All of us are back. Legion of us. Speaking of which, I want to briefly, before we get into the Hollywood stuff, because we're going to be talking, we're talking Hollywood, it's going to largely be Judeo-Christian Catholic interpretations of possessions and exorcism. We're going to touch on some other stuff, but I want to start in early Jewish texts that predate the Bible, like the Book of Tobit. Possessions and exorcisms are, talked about. They are evil in nature. They cause people to act out, to act out of character, to do terrible things. In the Bible, of course, in the New Testament, there's a lot of mention of exorcisms because one of Jesus's superpowers was casting out demons. The most famous one, and my favorite, is when he cast demons out of a man and into a herd of pigs that then ran over a mountain and off a cliff and killed themselves. But that was when he demanded to know the demon's name, and the demon said, "We are legion. We are called Legion, for we are many." And that is like, that's just a badass line. It's like one of my favorite parts of the Bible. I love that part. It's written in 3 of the 4 Gospels. Matthew, Mark, and Luke all talk about it. So that's actually kind of rare, for multiple Gospels to be talking about the same incident. But it's Mark that has that cool line, Mark chapter 5. So it's, "My name is Legion, for we are many." And the purpose of possession in the Bible, from a Catholic point of view, and the reason pigs are part of this story, is the reason the devil hated God was basically an argument over the creation of man. And suddenly Lucifer, or Satan, was no longer God's most favored creation. Man was. So there was jealousy, the war in heaven, cast out of heaven, hell is created, blah, 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 all that stuff. So possession is the devil's way of desecrating God's favorite toy, which is us. It's showing them, like, look at how disgusting your creation is. Look at what I made them do. I'm making this guy live in his own shit and vomit and beat his wife and act like a crazy person because your creation is filth. And that's like the whole point of the devil's idea of demonic possession is, I'm going to send my minions into your favorite toys and make them do horrible things to each other. Because this is fun for me, and I'm proving to you, God, that you're not so great. It's really just essentially an angry child lashing out at his father with superpowers.
Yeah.
And nowhere is this better depicted than in The Exorcist. Can we talk about The Exorcist?
Sure.
So,
I did want to mention something about
go
The
for
Exorcist.
It. Do it.
In the weeks after the film came out, the Catholic Church in Boston received daily requests for exorcisms.
Yep.
And, the script was written by William Peter Blatty,
who wrote the novel,
adapted from his 1971 novel.
Which is why anyone who has read the novel and seen the movie, they are very close to each other.
He said that he wrote the book, the inspiration for the book and film was a Washington Post article he read in 1949 about a Maryland boy who had been exorcised.
I believe by Father Amorth. He
believed that it was an accurate account.
Yes. So the book is excellent. The movie is my number one favorite movie of all time, directed by the great William Friedkin, with Max von Sydow, Ellen Burstyn, Linda Blair. So the reason why I said it is the best adaptation of the Catholic idea of possession is because Reagan is, played by Linda Blair. She's an innocent child. She's done nothing wrong. She hasn't fucked around or invited things in. I mean, there's like I think there's like a little thing with the Ouija board, but it's not like she has earned this or deserved it. She's not cursed. This is, and her possession takes the form of turning this little girl into as filthy a creature as you can imagine. Now, she's physically deteriorates into this like scabby, gross, vomiting, monster. And she also becomes like overtly sexualized, which is very disturbing, violent, and says like the most abhorrent, disgusting things you can imagine, because
but like hidden shames.
Yes.
Exposing like the hidden evils of the other people
Picks
that come
out
to visit her.
The guilt that people have over decisions they've made in their lives, and it's always going towards the human weak points, exploiting them. And
and like a rare sign of demonic possession is the anti-gravitational.
Yeah, the levitating. Yeah. Now there comes in the movie. It's really addressed from all sides: the psychological, the physical, and then it's only really when Ellen Burstyn, when is desperate, when nothing's working, that she approaches a priest, because she's an atheist. Now, the Catholic Church, some people might be surprised by it, but if you think about it, it's really unsurprising. Loves this movie, loves it, because it is the most perfect representation of what Satan wants to do to humanity. Satan doesn't really usually act so overtly. In the Bible, he's usually depicted as like a whisperer, someone who gets people to turn on each other through suggestion, because the idea is he can point to God and say, I barely had to lift a finger and your people tore each other apart. I just offered them another option, and this whole village you had to destroy because they turned against you. But in The Exorcist, they actually have a moment where the demon says, I'm the devil. And Father Karras, uses that as like a reason to not believe him, being like, he says, that's like saying you're Napoleon,
Right.
But then we find out later it's actually a specific demon, Pazuzu, that is possessing. So the Catholic Church loves this film because it shows that motivation of the devil, like what he wants to do to humanity is corrupt us and make us filthy, beasts, drag us through the mud. And it, the good guys win.
Right.
The little girl is saved through the heroic sacrifice of Father Karras, who invites the demon into himself and then takes him, to out the window. That gets changed around a little in the sequels, but we're just talking about the original.
Well, that's what that priest I was that psychiatrist I was talking about, the one that does Dr. Richard Gallagher. He believes he's on the winning side. That's why he continues to do these consulting and practices.
Honestly, who's to say? Who's to say? What's out there, what exists, what doesn't. I'm happy that the large majority of these things are treated as psychological disorders, because I believe that is the case.
Well, there has been a lot of movement in the field of psychiatry to establish a metric of determining if it's mental illness solely or if it's some type of demonic possession. You have to have like a number of factors, including.
Oh, the Catholic Church has that, and that's addressed in The Exorcist as well. That there's a list of criteria that has to be met and it's very, very rigid, and it's very rare. To the Vatican's credit, they do still have these beliefs and practice these things, but they have a system in place that is very thorough.
Right.
To screen out, and they do defer to science, and more recent popes have talked openly about mental illness and mental health, aside from divine influence, that it's a strictly earthly thing, and I think that's important.
Well, back to films.
Yeah, let's get into some movies.
Let's talk about The Conjuring.
Oh, good one.
So, The Conjuring follows Ed and Lorraine Warren, which we've talked about in previous podcasts. And it's based on the true case of the Perron family and their haunted Rhode Island home. And in the Conjuring film, I'm just talking about the first one here. The Perron family moved their family into a new house and experienced strange and disturbing things. And it culminates in the possession of the matriarch of the family.
Yeah, Lily Taylor goes bananas.
She does. And so Ed and Lorraine have to exorcise this entity out.
Yeah.
So that is,
and it's like
a filmatic example of, like The Exorcist.
Yes.
It's a possession and then an exorcism.
And one of the things that's a great movie, and the practical effects, it's super scary, but it also does a very good job of showing, like, what demons, why they want to possess us, because she turns against her children, she turns against her husband, she hurts herself, she's torturing them psychologically, and that gets into a trope of Hollywood possessions that I or demonic possessions that I wanted to address. Is before an entity, you see this a lot, before an entity can take over fully, they have to, like, wear the person down,
right?
So you see that, like, honestly, nowhere do you see that better than in the movie Hereditary.
Well, honestly, I was going to make an argument that Hereditary is more of a mental illness based belief that you're being possessed.
I mean, it does end with him literally becoming King Paimon, Archlord of Hell.
I know.
With his decapitated mother crawling up the ceiling.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit, though.
But sure.
But the initiating incident is the grief.
Yes. No. Allegorically, absolutely.
And so it's a miniature artist played by Toni Collette named Annie. She goes through the stages of mourning the recent death of her mother. Complicated relationship there. But before she can deal with that grief, the family has another tragedy of the death of their daughter, which forces Annie to basically have a psychological break and collapses into this, based on, like, her family intergenerational trauma and demonic folklore that exists within her family.
Yeah.
She becomes this possessed thing that takes out a lot of this evil on her son.
I'm going to get into spoiler territory here, so warning.
Yeah, it's like 15 years old.
No, it's from 2018, I think. If you
5 years old, I meant.
If you goodness, what has happened? So in the movie, they address that for the entire lives of these children and their mother, they have been preparing a vessel for King Paimon, who is an actual demon written about in medieval texts, representing wealth and the acquisition of secret alchemical knowledge, which are those bad things? I guess that's bad. You shouldn't be rich and you shouldn't learn things. Okay. So, but in the movie, they talk about, they were preparing Charlie, but Paimon prefers a male host. Mm-hmm. So they prepared his brother, Alex Wolff's character. Toni Collette becomes possessed only after losing everything and accidentally burning her husband to death right in front of her. Then in that moment, the light hits her, she becomes possessed. It's this preparation, and Alex Wolff, throughout the movie, he's hallucinating. You see the cult members sort of in the background chanting at him and following him, and weird shit keeps happening because they're grooming him, they're preparing him, and then at the end, he's so damaged and traumatized that Paimon just slips right in.
Yeah,
and now he is King of Hell. So you see that trope that in order for an invasive entity to get inside, they have to make space for themselves. They've got to hollow you out, which, listen, I'm just going to put it out there, as the same basic mentality of special forces training in most militaries of, breaking the person psychologically and then building them back up into something. So,
Well,
Seems
there
healthy.
is a true story behind the influence of the film Hereditary, which a real life incident from 2004 in Marietta, Georgia. John Kemper Hutcherson accidentally decapitated his childhood friend and a passenger named Frankie on a telephone pole support wire after Frankie had leaned his head from the vehicle to relieve symptoms of being drunk.
You know, our parents always said not to do that.
Yep. So,
yikes.
I mean, if you've watched the film, then you know the horrific decapitation scene.
But, you know, you see that a
Ouchie.
lot in these possession movies. Like I said, like there's an element of, and it happens in the Exorcist where, you know, they're breaking people's spirits,
but
taking
also
things away from them.
The mental illness aspect of this film, because Annie's brother had schizophrenia.
Or did he?
Right.
He actually, Annie's brother was supposed to be the vessel for Paimon, and then he killed himself.
Right.
Yeah.
And the daughter, you know, with the constant clicking because she can't deal with her emotions.
Or because she is
right. Yeah, I guess you
slowly
could
taken over. Yeah,
every
I know.
experience.
That's the thing. That's the best thing about Ari Aster movies is, and
not just Ari Aster movies.
I know, but
all possession.
I'm just really looking forward to Beau is
experiences.
Afraid and anything this man does, because you can watch and rewatch his movies. You can come at them from multiple angles, and you can be right every time. It is so open to interpretation, but there is a discernible narrative there. It's not like it's that surrealistic that you can't follow along. Damn, love it. Anyway, Hereditary is my second favorite movie.
Excellent. Let's see. What do we have next?
Well, I mean, you know, getting back into that like Roman Catholic trope, it's a very binary good versus evil thing in possession movies. It's usually an innocent person being taken over, and a trained expert comes in with the power of the divine behind them, but it's never easy. Like, you still got to go through a lot of shit. It's not like God comes down and is like, oh yeah, done. You know, you got to deal with getting thrown up on and jamming stuff up your, you know, and hearing horrible things about your dead mother. So, you know, there is that element of like humans have to help themselves, but the reason there's something very refreshing about a lot of possession movies is it is pretty simple.
Yeah.
Demons bad, humans trying to exorcise demons good, and when we win, it's great.
Well,
Yay.
where the complication comes in is with the spiritual possessions, because maybe it's not all bad. You know, like when people are like, oh, is this ghost bad, or is the spirit bad telling me to do something?
Yeah.
Or are they here to help?
Like, there's an entire DC character, Deadman, whose whole thing is possessing people.
Yeah.
Like, that's his superpower, and you know, then using their bodies to like fight evil or whatever.
Which I want to sort of talk about with films like Ouija and Witchboard.
Whoa, Witchboard!
Well,
Holy shit!
The Ouija board conjuring
I know.
entities.
Listen, Witchboard, that hit me hard. That's been a long time since I've seen that movie. That's a nostalgia trip.
So a Ouija board is really designed to get in touch or contact spirits.
And let me say, I've mentioned my very religious upbringing. Ouija boards were strictly forbidden in my house. I was sat down and instructed to never go near that. And I believe my reaction was, you mean the thing done by the guys that make Monopoly?
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
But
is Monopoly? Can I play Monopoly?
Well, Monopoly is evil as well.
Yeah. From like a capitalist, anti-capitalist point of view, sure, absolutely. I think it's bullshit, but
I mean, it's all about, unfair tax practices.
Yeah.
Taxing the poor.
Yeah. If honestly, it could be Trump the game if you threw in like some sexual assault.
So anyway, Ouija
Might cut
board
that.
and the film Ouija. It's
And
really
Ouija too.
about contacting spirits.
And also, listen, I'll throw it out there: the Spanish film Veronica, by one of the directors of Rec.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a dope movie. about Ouija
Sometimes
boards.
you can't help but have the spirit come into your home. For example, the film Oculus, mirror, it's a mirror to like a window to evil
An
inside.
early effort by our master Mike Flanagan.
First of all, it's an amazing film. Maybe
So
the
good.
dialogue isn't great.
Karen
but
Gillan's in
that,
it before she was Nebula.
It's incredible.
Katie Sackhoff is in it. It's got a great cast. It's so good.
It's scary.
It is really scary.
Sinister, The Ringu, is evil trapped inside of a videotape.
Yeah, like cursed objects.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That can be a form of possession. Yeah, people getting in possession of something that changes their personality, like the movie The Possession has a Dobby box.
Yep.
In it. That's not a Dobby box. Excuse me. A Dybbuk. It's a Dybbuk box, and a Dybbuk is the malevolent spirit of Jewish folklore that can possess people and make them act like assholes.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, the film Jennifer's Body.
Oh, right. Yeah.
She's the character Jennifer, played by Megan Fox, is in a satanic ritual against her will, I might add. And she's turned into a succubus who has to feed off of boys in her town and high school in order to stay, young and beautiful and vibrant. And she's forced to be sacrificed. She's forced to be sacrificed by this boy band, this towny boy band.
Yeah.
So that they can be successful
I think
and have a hit record.
Diablo Cody wrote the script.
Yeah.
So it's pretty out there.
It's definitely and we're going to do an episode on feminist horror. And this is definitely one of those that, reclaiming the body that is
just real quick, if you want to know,
taken against your will.
If you want to know what feminist horror is, just see how a certain group of men react to a movie online, and you can figure out which movie is feminist and not. So I want to move away for a bit from the Roman Catholic idea of possession into other religious ideas of possession.
Can I just talk about a few other spiritual possessions?
I would love it.
Before we move into that.
Hold on.
So agree. Paranormal Activity. This is a point of view film that uses found footage.
We saw that in the theater.
From mostly the home recording footage. And it's
with Micah
spirit
and
that
Katie.
takes over the wife. And you can see that transpire. And then also Amityville Horror and The Shining, those are, technically, haunted houses.
Especially
haunted hotels.
Amityville Horror Part 2.
Yep.
Especially with the fucking Paulie from Rocky movies. Yeah.
And in these films, the patriarch of the family is taken over by an evil of the place where they're living. And although it's not explicitly demonic, throughout The Shining, there are
absolutely
ghosts in the hotel that aren't all evil, but a lot of them are. It sort of absorbs into the structure. That's sort of what you're supposed to believe, is that this evil, that it's not necessarily demonic possession, that it's the leftover violence.
And before it takes over Jack Torrance completely, it wears him down. Isolation, loneliness, then playing off of his alcoholism with the ghost bar and all of that, it breaks him down piece by piece by piece until it can take him over.
Yep.
So
brick by brick, as you will.
In some examples of possessions from other points of view, I want to talk about a few movies. There are a couple of really good possession movies from an Islamic point of view. Mm-hmm. There's a Turkish film, Dabe the Possession. Dabe is a long-running series of films that are thematically connected.
Dabe not possessed.
They're thematically sort of connected, but they're not necessarily sequels to each other. It's just sort of like a series. But The Possession came out in 2013. It was directed by Hassan Karadaja, and I do apologize if I'm not pronouncing that perfectly. Another great example, Satan's Slaves by Joko Anwar from Indonesia. The remake specifically. There's the original from 1981 and then the remake from just a few years ago. So Satan's Slaves, it's about a family There's, the same kind of possession tropes you might see in The Exorcist or a similar film, but they're not calling a Roman Catholic priest because it's not a Roman Catholic society. They are calling, an imam to come and exorcise the demons. So you just see different practices. The same sort of theme of there's something supernatural that is unwelcome and invading a loved one and hurting us, and we need the help of the divine through a human arbiter to expel it. It's just a difference in certain rituals or details, but the idea is the same. That you have to call a specialist, like a spirit plumber. There's also from a more shamanistic or pagan point of view, there's the medium from Thailand and Indonesia, which is a sort of like half movie, half fake documentary that goes to some incredible places, but that very much deals with possession from like ancient gods, forgotten about gods, that are only really worshipped by a small group of people that fully understand their true power. And the idea that there are pantheons that are so old, no living human even remembers them. But that doesn't mean they're gone. It's a great movie, The Medium. Those are just some, talking about spirits and demons. Also, The Evil Dead. Those are straight up possession movies. I mean, the Deadites possess people constantly and swallow your soul. Sam Raimi loves him a good Mesopotamian demon. Between that and Drag Me to Hell with the Lamia. He loves him some old school Mediterranean and Mesopotamian demons.
Yeah. I think that most, as we establish, most cultures have some type of possession or spiritual practice.
Yeah, I mean, most cultures have an idea of what happens after death. Even new religious
movements like Wicca, they also have goddess practices.
Yeah.
But didn't we watch a movie of like a water god, a water spirit?
Yeah, it was Ro, the Malaysian movie from 2019.
Right.
And I pulled that from the top of my head without looking it up.
That's great.
20
wow.
minutes.
And I remembered exactly what the movie was about per the letter.
We actually did really like it.
Yeah.
Ro was very good.
It was.
Malaysian film. Check it out.
So, yeah. I think that one of the areas that hasn't really been explored, or depending on how you word it, exploited by Hollywood, is more of the international spiritual possession films.
We're definitely seeing it,
starting
thanks
to
to
emerge.
the streaming, Netflix and Shudder and other services making big investments in international properties. So, you're starting to see, there's a large Catholic and Christian population in South Korea. So you're starting to see Catholic possession movies from a South Korean point of view, which is interesting. And then, like we mentioned earlier, Islamic possessions, more like ancient type gods or demons or pagan possessions, animism, things like that. I love it. I'm excited because I love me a good holy water power of Christ compels you movie, but I've seen like 1,000 of them. There are other demons out there. Listen, demon, it's not you. It's just I've been down this infernal highway to hell before, and I want a different flavor of Legion.
Yeah, maybe. I think that would be really great, is to really get into more of we are starting to see it with jinn.
Yeah, for sure.
A lot of books, especially in the magical realism genre, they talk about different types of, jinn possession.
Yeah, there was the movie
we know
Under
the
the
jinn
Shadow
as being Aladdin.
Yeah, it's been sort of Disneyfied into the genie.
Yeah.
But, the jinn is a pre-Islamic, idea of like evil spirits, tricksters, poltergeists, and that could possess you and make you into a murderer or a monster, things like that. But, this is like sort of a broad strokes episode. We're definitely going to be diving into some of these topics deeper in future episodes.
Absolutely. And while in between the two, I just wanted to throw out a couple of recommendations for books that you can read about possession.
Definitely read The Exorcist by William Peter Blatty. It is very good.
The Terror by Dan Simmons.
Yeah. That's a great book.
Which you've read.
Yeah. Also a very good season of TV on AMC. They did a special one season of it. And then a second season that was different, but not based on a book. Anyway.
There's a book called A Good and Happy Child by Justin Evans. Come Closer by Sarah Gran. So you can check some of those out.
Yeah.
And read about it if you'd like instead of watching about it.
Yeah, one tiny subgenre we didn't touch on, and I want to explore this in a future episode, is possession as an allegory for aging and dementia. You see that in movies like Relic or the Taking of Deborah Logan. It's, it can really be used as an allegory for a wide variety of personality or mental issues, changes, things like that. And I've suddenly, over the last few years, I've noticed it's it's being used a lot to explore the psychological and cognitive effects of aging and degenerative diseases, and treating that as like, well, what if grandma's just possessed?
I mean, I think if you look up any movie and put in possession, that you'll come up with a lengthy list. All of the hauntings of or the exorcisms of films.
It is a widely plucked fruit. That's for sure.
And then you can distinguish the ones that are based on quote unquote true stories.
Yeah, that's up for you, listener.
Yep.
I'm not going to tell you what's real and what isn't. We're just talking about our opinion on things and what we think and what we believe. But honestly, if you are worried about possessions and whatnot, I don't know, burn some sage.
Yeah.
Carry a rosary.
Absolutely.
Watch The Exorcist for sure.
Talk to a psychiatrist.
And remember what your mother's doing in hell. It's
understand
scandalous.
Your family history and any possible ritualistic folklore that might exist.
Yeah. Did your dad come home one day,
keep track of your blood,
suddenly wealthy?
Keep track of all your blood.
Did you hit an old Romani woman and then leave her body by the ditch?
Yeah, do you deserve this?
Did you have something? Did you have this coming?
Did you step on a crack lately?
Did your ancestors own slaves?
Are you, taking rocks out of the painted desert?
Did you vote for... never mind. Well, thanks for joining us, everybody. And thanks for joining us, everybody, inside of everybody joining us.
You're welcome.
See you next time.
Oh, you're welcome. What? What happened?
Nothing. I just took a sip of water and it's burning my tongue. Oh, God.
Bye, everyone. Terror in Tandem is written, produced, and recorded by Laura and Richard Mathiasen, and edited and mixed by Richard Mathiasen. Our theme was written and performed by Carrie Denver, and all other music was written and performed by David Suspanic. All opinions expressed on this podcast are our own and should be taken as such. Thanks for listening, and please remember to give us a like, a review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. See you next time. We're staying.